Hello and welcome to Study with Sudhir, your digital classroom. This is time to revise history and I've got 10 questions of the 2 mark which comes in part 1 of your history civics paper. So let's begin revising. Let's see how much you know at this point in time, because I would expect that most of you would have finished with a significant part of the history civics revision by now. In fact, I was supposed to do this sometime after the 8th, but I've given you almost an extra 10 days or so, right? So let's start with the first video lesson on the history revision. We've already done 2 videos on civics, so I hope you have seen that for the 1 mark question, because the part 1 is where you can actually score a 30 on 30. The long format, of course, depending on how well you write, it depends on that. But if you can get this 30 on 30, the 50 marks also, more or less you should be able to score a significant chunk in that. So let's start. Question number 1, and I'm putting this up on the screen. State any 2 repressive policies of Lord Curzon. State any 2 repressive policies of Lord Curzon, who had, if you remember, a significant role to play in the partition of Bengal. So he was considered as one of the foremost viceroys of the British while they were ruling India, and he did play an important role in Indian history at that point in time. Now, what were the 2 repressive policies? The Official Secrets Act, and I'm mentioning 3, the Indian Universities Act of 1904 and the Calcutta Corporation Act of 1898. If you mention any 2 of them, you should be able to get the marks. All 3 of them, and you should write this, all 3 of them imposed restrictions on Indians to curb the feeling of nationalism. Okay. Question number 2. What was the General Service Enlistment Act? Okay, many students kind of miss this because this is part of the many reasons which are given, the military causes which led to the first war of independence, right? Now, according to traditional belief, it was a taboo for a Brahmin to cross the seas. The British Parliament passed the General Service Enlistment Act in 1856. The year is important, so please make a note of it. As per this act, Indian soldiers could be sent overseas on duty. The act did not take into account the sentiment of the Indian soldiers. The Brahmin soldiers saw in this a danger to their caste, and this led to a feeling of resentment among them. Okay, so this is as far as the General Service Enlistment Act is concerned. Who were the 2 leaders who led the Home Rule movement in India? Here you need to just mention the 2 names, no details being asked for at this point in time. Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Annie Besant. Annie Besant and Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Who founded the Forward Bloc? Mention one of its objectives. Forward Bloc was founded by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose because he felt the urgent need for an organized left-wing party in the Congress, because this he did after resigning from the presidentship of the Congress in 1939. And we have all spoken, you must have read about the differences he had with Mahatma Gandhi at that point in time. He laid down the foundation of a new party within the Congress to bring the entire left wing under one banner. This party, subsequently known as Forward Bloc, was formed on May 3rd, 1939. Now, this is as far as the first part of the question is concerned. The second part is objectives. Its immediate objectives were liberation of India with the support of workers, youth, peasants and other organizations. Name the countries that formed the Axis bloc during World War II. Whether World War I is asked or World War II is asked, please read the question very, very carefully in the examination. The 3 countries are Germany, Italy and Japan. Okay. Then we come to the 6th question. Why was the Mountbatten Plan finally accepted by the Congress? There are 2 reasons for that. One, the large-scale communal riots that broke out at that point in time convinced everyone that the solution to the communal problem was partition of India, and that it was better to have a strong center with a smaller India than have a weak center with a large India. Number 2, the leaders felt that further delay in transfer of power could find India in the midst of a civil war. Since it's a 2 mark question, I would advise you to give 2 solid reasons. In fact, there are 4-5 big reasons in the textbook. Okay, then we come to this 7th question. Name the presidents of the Indian National Congress who presided over the first 2 sessions. Name the presidents of the Indian National Congress who presided over the first 2 sessions. W.C. Banerjee, in 1885, the first session in Mumbai, and number 2 was held in Kolkata in 1886, where the president was Dadabhai Naoroji. Okay. Then the 8th question, why was the Simon Commission boycotted by the Indians? Why was the Simon Commission boycotted by the Indians? Now, all the political parties, including the Congress as well as the Muslim League, decided to boycott the Simon Commission because it was an all-white commission. It was known as an all-white commission because there were no Indians associated with it. It's all Britishers, and the Simon Commission was received with black flags, mass demonstrations, hartals and slogans saying Simon go back all over the country. Okay. Then, who appoints the Secretary General of the United Nations? Who appoints the Secretary General of the United Nations? The Secretary General of the United Nations is appointed by the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council. The last question in this one is, in this revision test, is what is meant by the term non-alignment? What is meant by the term non-alignment? And you would be expected to write a meaty definition of this. Now, what would be a meaty definition? Now, you need to give the background as well as the definition. Now, the concept of non-alignment started emerged during the Cold War. Now, after the Second World War, the world was divided into 2 power blocks, one led by the erstwhile USSR and one led by the USA. And it was during this period that many newly independent countries, especially in Asia and Africa, decided not to join any of the 2 power blocks and remain non-aligned. So, non-alignment was the chief characteristic of this kind of a political, also social and economic awakening in these countries in Asia and Africa. Now, what is non-alignment? Now, it is the international policy of a sovereign state according to which it does not align itself with any of the power blocks and at the same time actively participates. And the second part is important, the operative part, actively participates in world affairs to promote international peace, harmony and cooperation. So, this is as far as the 10 questions. Please mark yourself as to how much of meat and material you have been able to give in these answers. See how well you have fared. If there is any part where you think you have not done as well in terms of being given the key points, the keywords and the detail, please go back to the chapter, just look at it again. You will be absolutely comfortable. We will do another video giving 10 more questions that will be part of the history revision part 2. So, do check that out in a couple of days and I am sure you will all do well. Keep revising history civics because there is a lot of portion to be covered. Don't leave it to those 4-5 days gap that you have before the history civics exam, because that time you need to devote some time to physics as well, because that has only 1 day gap. Thank you very much for watching.